Hey everybody, and welcome. Today we're going to talk about the Earth's crust and plate tectonics. So if you've ever looked at a map and have noticed that some of the continents look like they should sort of fit together like a puzzle piece, well, for example, here's a very poor drawing, but you get the idea. It looks like South America and Africa should sort of just fit together right there. So if you've ever noticed this, then maybe you wondered, why is that? Why did they look like that? Look like they should fit together? And then also, why aren't they together anymore? What made them split apart? Well, today we're going to talk about that and what makes that movement happen. So first we need to talk about what is sort of inside the Earth, sort of the layers of the Earth. So I have an apple here, half an apple, and we're going to use this to represent our Earth. So I've cut it open, we've cut the Earth in half. On the outside we have the crust, which is the apple peel, but this is the crust, this is the outside layer of the Earth, and it's where we live, of course. On the inside we have at the center the core, and it's of course not shaped like a star, it's round, but it's right at the center, so you get the idea. And then this in-between layer here, this is called the mantle. Now, the core is really hot. The mantle is really hot, so it's not as hot as the core, but it's still really hot. The core, since there's so much stuff pushing down on it, a lot of pressure, the core, even though it's so hot, is actually basically solid. The mantle, on the other hand, is really hot, but there's not quite so much pressure, so it's liquid. Now, in previous videos, we've talked about the fact that heat rises, and hot things like to go to the surface or upwards. So a hot air balloon, for example. We heat up the air in a balloon, and then it can lift off, and it can carry people and other things. And on the other side, of course, cool things sink or fall down. So same thing here. We have this really hot core and this not quite as hot mantle, and the mantle is liquid. So if we have, for example, a piece of mantle or an area of mantle, right where my finger is here, it's going to get really hot because it's close to the core. And so it's going to rise outwards towards the crust, and then at the crust it's going to cool off because it's not quite so hot anymore. So it's going to cool off, and then it's going to sink back down. Now down here, what's going to happen? It's going to get hot again. So it's going to rise, and then out here, that's right, it's going to cool off. So it's going to sort of create this circle, and this is what we call a convection cell, this circle of rising and cooling. And this convection cell, this is actually what moves the continents and moves the crust of the Earth. So today we are going to set up a demonstration, and of course you can do this at home if you have materials that would work. And so we're going to make a demonstration of a convection cell. The main thing we need for this demonstration is a glass dish. And we want it to be glass because we're going to put candles underneath it, so we don't want it to melt if it's plastic. And we also want it to be deep so that we can see the movement of that convection cell that we're going to create. So I'm going to set this up, and if you're going to try this at home, then you can see how I set it up and see what you might have available if you are going to try it at home along with me. So I need something to raise the dish off of the surface. I am going to pour the water in now, and this is roughly room temperature water. We just don't want it to be too hot because if we're going to be heating it, we want it to have somewhere to heat up too. So room temperature water, and then beneath that we are going to put a candle or two. I'm going to try to use 2 candles, but 1 is fine. And then I want the candles a little bit closer to the water, so I'm just going to raise them up a little bit with a couple of lids of various kinds. All right, I'm going to light the candles as we continue to let the water sort of settle after being dumped. So get an adult to help you with this part, of course. And now we're going to hope that that water is settled enough, and I'm going to put a little bit of food coloring into the water. So this is going to help us see the water as it is doing that convection cell action. So I'm just going to put a couple of drops in there. They're going to go to the bottom. And now I'm going to put the candles right in place and put a white screen up so you can see what's going on. So pretty quickly we should see the water heat enough that it rises right where the candles are. So there we go. We can see that water with the food coloring in it start to rise. And as it gets to the top, it's going to spread out along the surface. So if this was the Earth, it'd be spreading out along the crust, right beneath the crust. And then as it gets to the sides, it's going to cool off and sink back down. So now it's starting to cool off a little bit and sink back down, and then, since it's sort of creating just a cycle, a circle even, it's going to go back towards the middle and get reheated and then rise again, and it will just continue like that. So we have created a convection cell. So that's a pretty simple demonstration, at least using simple items, to show what causes our Earth's plates on the crust to actually move around. Now, it's not a fast process. It moves about the speed as our growing fingernails. So our fingernails don't grow that fast, right? That's about the speed at which the plates on the crust move. So a few centimeters a year. So it's not fast, but over the course of millions of years, it does add up. Now there's a specific type of boundary between those plates that this one is called, where they are separating, and that's called a divergent boundary. And there are other boundaries between plates that make mountains and volcanoes. This is not one of them. And we'll talk about a different type of boundary in another video. So I hope you enjoyed that experiment and were able to try it at home. And I will see you next time for a different type of boundary and a classic experiment. See you then.